and beyond. Thank you for being part of Human Rights Radio family. Together we'll take a look at a topic of today, and with my panelists in the building, we will certainly take a closer look at some of the events that have happened that occurred across Nigeria as at just some few days and yesterday until today. I have my usual suspects, but quite an unusual number. Barrister Idris Bawa is in the building. Thank you for joining us and good morning.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning, listeners.
Shola joins us as well. It's good to have you, Shola.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, listeners.
I don't think they heard you.
Good morning.
Okay, so that works well. And my name is Peter. Today we'll take a look at alleged banks' connivance with government officials in diverting funds without BVN, EFCC. That's according to the EFCC. Money laundering has been said to be a threat to the development of any nation and society, and that's not an uncommon word in Nigeria. Now, over the time, the question has been that many government officials have been allegedly accused of being involved in the act of money laundering, and many of such cases are still pending and unresolved for reasons we may not know at the moment. But money laundering is indeed a global phenomenon which undermines the economic and political stabilities of states. However, as much as money laundering is a global phenomenon, over the last decade, it has been apparent that developing countries have been more exposed and vulnerable to its exploits. Recently, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in a workshop, alleged that some government officials, as well as banks in Nigeria, have extensively violated the Money Laundering Act 2004-2011. The EFCC boss, Ibrahim Magu, had said money laundering regulation is mostly disregarded in Nigeria as illegal bank transactions having led to the withdrawals of billions of nairas of public funds. There are several bank accounts that are not linked to the BVN but are active. So you might want to ask yourself what a BVN is. Many or virtually every single person that has an account or operates a bank account should be linked to a bank verification number. That's what a BVN is, bank verification number, and which was also initiated to enable customers have single identity in the banking system to ensure effectiveness, safety and reliability of the payment system in the banking sector. Some of the alleged culprits in most cases of that event have been the Bureau de Change officials and those not licensed and records are not kept. We've also seen banks, microfinance banks, who get involved because of the interest to the money. But the first question is, what exactly is the essence of having a BVN? Barrister Idris.
Yeah, good morning, Peter. BVN, just like you rightly said, is bank verification number. And the essence of having that is to have a data of all persons who have accounts with various banks. No matter the type of account, you need to have a number, and that number assists in tracking your identity. And once you have a verification number in one bank, it applies to all other accounts which you own in other several banks. So it's a way of checkmating the amount of money that one has, and also to assist in tracking where monies are laundered, monies are moved from one account to the other. So it's a way of actually assessing how much one has in his account. Remember that under the EFCC law, the BVN, corporate organizations are allowed to transfer money up to a tune of 10 million, I guess. Then private individual is about 5 million naira. And once you want to withdraw something over and above that amount, the bank should notify EFCC or any government authority that has power to, assess or to monitor this type of transaction. The essence of all of this is to assist in tracking the way funds are moved around, is to assist in curtailing issue of say criminal funding of criminal agencies or organizations, like loan that money to finance terrorism, finance other ill vices that affect the society. So this is generally why we have the BVN.
And so are we surprised, Shola, that this is coming up? Government officials again being accused. We've seen where government officials have been accused, or government ministries and agencies have been accused of not even paying bills to the AEDC in this instance, not paying some of the common bills like water bills, owing the largest amount of bills, when they should be at the forefront of encouraging some of these things. So is this a surprising thing to you?
I'm not surprised, but it's so sad that the so-called leaders, the lawmakers, break the laws. We have an act that protects the fact that you need to pay, you need to do the treasury bill account, that you're supposed to pay money with an account number. That is why since 2015, they've ensured that every Nigerian that have a bank account must have BVN. Why are we doing this? To reduce criminal cases in our country, in particular in the federal government system. But the way it is now, the government, the lawmakers are the same people boycotting the whole rules, meaning the act, the laws that are created are still messed up.
So why is the act not effective? It's supposed to be effective. Somebody is responsible for ensuring that these things do not happen.
Peter, you see, we go back and forth about laws. It's not the creation of laws that is actually the problem. It's implementing what we already have. We, for instance, if we have NGOs, for instance, that are key into this aspect, you see that they sensitize the bankers, sensitize the government and the people on the need to follow through the process of this law. So because we don't have people who are interested, who are keen into implementing this law, a lot of us don't even know what this law is about. So it boils down to the issue of, once a law is created, let us have an implementation strategy on how to deploy the essence of this law so that people will understand why the law was made in the first place. So if you ask me, why is the law not respected? Because people don't know about it. And once a law is violated, what happens? So there is need for people to
we have two regulatory bodies in this sense.
Yes.
First, we have the EFCC on the one hand, which covers all matters of economic and financial crimes. We also have on the other hand the Central Bank of Nigeria, which should be responsible for checkmating most of the activities of these banks.
And other financial institutions.
I mean, is it a communication problem? Can't the two work together and find a lasting solution?
I don't think it's a communication problem. It's just trying to the best way out is to develop an implementation plan between these two agencies on how to implement all of this law. What Magu is saying is even a tip of the iceberg. If you go into proper research about banking sector in Nigeria, there are some banks accounts that have huge amount of money that even the bankers themselves would not give out names of such owners of such accounts, because they know the implication of that. So it's all about corruption. It's all about lack of trust. We are not sincere to ourselves. Monies that are laundered, they affect our lives so seriously. They are public funds and meant for development, meant for the betterment of all of us. But this money are laundered because some persons are just I will say it's because of greed. What are we doing with this amount of money? Very recently we heard about money being left at the Kaduna airport when the airport was being used. How did this get there? Nobody owns that money. Some monies were found in one other place in Lagos. huge amount of money. All of these are money that have been laundered one way or the other. And to tell you the fact, majority of people who are involved in this don't even bank anymore. They have their own way of stashing this money away from public, notice. Sometimes you see surface tank in most houses, there's no single water that goes in there. Something else is happening there. Some people will dig, shallow grave and all of that, buried money inside. These are all, for God's sake, what are we going to do?
And that's because of the fear of the BVN.
Exactly.
Because the BVN now redirects all the information and streamlines every information, so the necessary authorities are aware of what is happening.
I think one of the best way for us is we should sensitize particularly our non-governmental organizations. They need to do more in the area of trying to curb corruption. If we go into research of this nature to know what is happening in this area, it will be mind-blowing to all of us.
But what about the international community? Okay, Shola, you want to make a contribution? Go ahead.
Apart from the NGOs, we the citizens, it's our civic responsibility. We have a duty to know what is our right. We should be aware of things. We should be aware of things going on.
Yeah.
We shouldn't wait for NGOs to always come to tell us, to sensitize us. Even the media are not doing up to what I expect. I expect them to be creating awareness, and we lack empathy in this country. There are so many things going on. We need empathy so that people will know that it is wrong for you to take public funds for your own personal interest. I mean, what would you do with all that money?
In some cases, transferring those monies. In the past, laundering was seen to be an international affair where somebody steals money and takes abroad. But of course, we know that some countries have been able to manage the laundering situation. Some are still battling because they still have some few bad eggs in amidst their teams. But in Nigeria, it looks as if now it is the banks keeping the monies on their behalf and not being able to transfer to other countries. You mentioned the issue of monies being stashed up in overhead tanks, shallow graves, and all of that. That might just be happening because there's a terrible situation where you cannot, or you can no longer carry monies of that amount to the banks. The banks on their own part are also limited. They cannot take them to the international community because at some point that BVN will still pop up.
Exactly. You see, in Nigeria today, people will tell you we are facing a lot of hardship. We are getting through difficult times and all of that. The question I normally ask is, at the federal level, which we all know, is the federal government paying any of us our salaries? The answer is no. Is the federal government paying us our pension and gratuity or our allowances and all of that? The answer is no. But why is there so much hardship? The reason is quite simple. The government has created this TSA, this single treasury account and all of that,
yes,
to mop up all of these monies that were being used, frivolously. Now, a lot of Nigerians don't have that free access to money anymore. So it's now cut your coat according to your cloth, not according to your size. Because if you say you want to cut a coat according to your size, if you have a 5-yard material and you want to sew babariga, it will not go. It will only sew one babariga for you. So it's now for you to decide to sew a jumper and a trouser and
or
all
a singlet.
Or a singlet, or you can do a short and a shirt. So it's cut your coat according to your cloth. So now this has actually brought out the real problem that a lot of us were living above our means. Monies that were not meant for us, we had access to them, and then we were just throwing them around. So all of these are issues relating to monies that are being laundered all around. But now that the chairman of EFCC has raised this vital issue, it behoves on all of us to keep watch and give as much information as possible. Just like Shola said, we owe ourselves that responsibility to ensure that everything works in the sector.
But what is? How do you tackle that kind of situation in a bank where you as an individual cannot even have access? You don't even know how the software works.
You don't have access. But you just said that we have the EFCC, we have the central bank. All these are regulatory agencies that can, dig into this area and all of that. They can commission experts to come and do, some of this investigation. Let me tell you something that happened just about 2-3 days ago, or yesterday in South Africa. One particular international organization has been found wanting of taking bribes to ensure that government agents, parastatal financial institutions or companies rather, all of them are involved in this bribery to ensure that the real audited account are falsified. In South Africa, this is just about a day or 2 days ago. It's related to fraud. It's about, all of this problem. So we need to wake up. Most of the problems we have, the auditors, most of them are not sincere. They will go into banks or other financial institutions and falsify documents and all of that to cover up, and at the end of the day they receive a stipend for what they have the work they are supposed to do. They won't do it, but they give false information. Like I said now, that particular company in South Africa is going in for it, and this happened all across the world. So the issue of audit is key if you want to really fight fraud.
Does that happen with independent or private sector driven auditors?
This particular
because I know that some ministries
I don't
sometimes
want to call the name. This particular firm is a private firm known worldwide.
Okay, yeah. I think I suspect the name. Don't say it. Don't.
I won't say the name.
Please
because,
don't say it.
But it's on the social media as we speak. Yeah.
Wow. Shala is feeling bad already, but the issue of corruption in Nigeria, how would you rate that? I mean, in South Africa, the president, Jacob Zuma, was investigated for spending just a few dollars. I use that term because compared to Nigeria, it is actually small money.
Peter,
and they said he used it for...
Peter, let me tell you, I am afraid when it comes to the issue of corruption, we are treating this issue with kid gloves. This present administration, whether we like it or not, they've done some bits, but they still have a lot more to do. In one of our discussions here, we made mention of diversion of materials, food in the Northeast. We made mention of one particular government staff or government appointee was involved in shady deals and all of that. The report, I guess, has been submitted to the federal government. What happens next? So the issue of corruption, we should look at it holistically. Let's not pretend about it. If we want to fight it headlong, let every Nigerian be involved. Because if we don't do it now, my fear is in the next 5-10 years, our kids will just, the kind of suffering that will happen to our children, only God knows. Because some few persons will be getting richer, while the majority of Nigerians will be getting poorer. The effect of all of this are some of the things we are facing now. Agitation here and there, kidnapping here and there, and all of that. These days and times, armed robbery, kind of people getting into people's home, there's no money for anybody to take at home anymore. So they now resort to kidnapping and all of that. So we need to treat this issue of corruption with every seriousness.
That might just be the bane of poverty in Nigeria. Would you agree to that?
I agree.
I mean, so many people would say if you go to some ministries, departments and agencies, there's a common term called returns. So the head of a particular unit must get a return to submit to the person above and all. Have you heard that before?
Peter, there are so many things. I think one particular member of the House of Representatives made mention of something concerning the police not quite long, that most police officers who are assigned, who are assigned to do other jobs outside their regular jobs are being paid. Where is this money going to? Like, for instance, Shell, for instance, may request for 5-10 police officers to be taking care of their facilities, and they pay money into how, I don't know, whether they give the police directly who are involved, and yet these police have their salaries somewhere and all of that. And people look for this kind of appointment so that they can, make money. And I'm sure that is where this issue of return comes into play. So it all around every institution, whether privately owned or government institution. So it's about corruption, and we need to think of better ways to addressing this.
Talking about better ways of addressing, Shola. All right.
Although we have regulators that are already doing their work to some extent, but we need civilians as well to follow in supervising and monitoring that those people, perpetrators of these crimes, are punished. Many of these cases are just dumped one side over 2-3 months. We just forget about it. We don't talk about it anymore. No awareness about it. We just found out that the case is gone, like it's buried. Why? Those are the questions Nigerians need to ask, and we don't just ask by just thinking or reading book. You need to come out. I'm not talking about radical protest. We can go write a letter,
make direct a formal approach.
Yes. Meet appropriate leaders, and then let's air our view. We should not just confine it in a corner, and you don't give. You might even have a better suggestion of how to catch perpetrators or nail them.
But even at that,
we have eyewitness
it looks as if when it comes to issues of corruption, there's hardly ever a punishment that you will give that somebody will not mess up. But the problem is that we're not consistent in those punishments.
Part of the problems we have is, I will say, how do I couch it now? It has to do with the courts having what I would call a directive on how to make a pronouncement, on how to make sentencing guidelines. That's the word. To have sentencing guidelines across board, so that where Mr. A commits an offense in Abuja, for instance, a similar offense that occurs in Maiduguri, in Port Harcourt, in Enugu, and all of that, the same amount of sentencing will be meted out to that person. So if you have sentencing guidelines developed along the lines of almost all of these laws that we have, it will help, addressing some of these issues. I raised it because at one time I think a judge at the Federal High Court, or either FCT here, made pronouncement and sentenced somebody who was accused of a crime to either 2 years or 2 months imprisonment, and that was what the law provided at that time. But if the law, as it is now in the ACJA, we have sentencing guidelines directing the judges on how to, carry out sentencing on some offenses.
You know something? Let me tell you something that I have noticed. Most of the time, when you have issues of laws being promulgated, you have punishment method on criminals and all of that.
The issue of discretion is there.
No, apart from that, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of Nigerians do not even know these laws and the punishments. There's an issue of awareness.
Yes, we do.
Until they catch you, and take you, then
we are going back to the same issue that I keep repeating every now and then about implementation strategy. The implementation strategy has nothing to do with awareness creation. Let the judges be aware of their role. The individuals are aware of what is the outcome
after they've been nabbed.
Yes,
but they need to know. When you use somebody as a scapegoat,
not after. We should start doing it immediately.
Exactly.
So it's not about after. The ACJA, for instance, a lot of work is being done on it. As we speak, I can tell you a number of lawyers have been trained, judges have been trained, the police officers, they are being trained too, the Nigerian prison, all of them are being trained. But the trainings are not enough because the act, as far as I'm concerned, is a national act. The state adopting it is another area completely, because if you look at it, the implementers of this act are federal agencies. The Nigerian police is a federal agent. The prison is a federal agent. The only ones that are not federal agents are the high courts, where it depends on the type of case. Where the case is a creation that is federal in nature, it has to be federal high court. So all of these are issues that people should, be sensitized about. I think I spoke about the sentence or alternative or community sentencing, which I also mentioned the other time. A judge will sentence somebody on the ACJA or ACJL and still send the person to prison on community service. They say, I pronounce you to serve community service and blah blah. Then we send the person to the prison. Has nothing absolutely to do with community service. So if you are sending, that's where the awareness should come from. If you are sending somebody to go and do community service, for instance, at the National Hospital, the person that should monitor the person's who has been sentenced is the general manager, or whoever is in charge of that hospital.
The CMD, the Chief Medical Director.
Chief Medical Director. The person should report to the CMD. And
so he comes from home.
Of course, he comes from home.
But he needs supervision from the police.
No.
No police.
No police.
No police.
Because that is why they call it community service. It's now behoves on the community to monitor the activity of that person, the sentencing, whether he's doing his job or not. If, for instance, his sentence is to go to National Hospital to be washing bedspread of that hospital, you want the police to come and monitor the person doing that? No, the CMD should know that the person has reported the number of hours it's supposed to work.
There should be a logbook or something.
Exactly, to monitor him. So these are some of the things that we need to know about our laws, which
that means we have a long way.
We have a long way to go.
Because even this one you mentioned, I'm just hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, community service. You ask somebody to go and be sweeping park, like Karumoto Park or Jabimoto Park. You want the police to monitor such a person. No, it doesn't work that way. The chairman of that motor park will have a logbook that the person has assumed his punishment from 8 o'clock. If it's from 8 o'clock to 10, because most times these persons are also working. The essence of you is to deter other like minds from committing that act. I'll give you one instance. If somebody like a very big top shot, let me not call a name, a very big top shot commits an offense, and you say go and do community service, and children maybe to be sweeping classrooms of one public school. As soon as the children who are within that community know that they know him and they see him sweeping, what did he do? He committed this offense. It's a warning to them that if you do this, no matter how highly placed you are, you'll be dealt with. So it's like to
and other parents that are coming to drop their children
we see
who work with government or other organizations will have learned.
So the issue of community service, we need to take it seriously and we need to learn how to implement it.
Wow, this is very interesting. And this is X-Ray on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at other developments regarding the topic. It's quite interesting that some of these things do not even require jails to be filled up in any way. Unfortunately, the jails have been the one-stop shop for any person convicted. Stay with Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. We'll be back.
This is Human Rights Radio 101.1. Redefining broadcasting.
As the fourth estate of the realm, the media stands as the watchman of the nation. On Media Lab, we dissect the news items of the day through the men and women that bring the news to you to give you the full story. Media Lab, airing exclusively on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. Redefining broadcasting.
Human Rights Radio.
In a world filled with questions, many were called, two were chosen. Reality comes to play. Stories are made. Moments when you feel the fever. 1 hour arguments, controversies, questions and answers, tensions rising, and more arguments. One man, one woman, one show. X-Ray. Every line.
Welcome back. It's X-Ray on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. And thank you so much for staying tuned in. You will be part of our discussion if you don't mind calling us on 081 89 99 1011. And that's the number you can reach us and be a contributor on this program. Before the break, we were trying to take a look at the topic, alleged banks' connivance and with government officials in diverting funds without the BVN. I need to connect the phone as quickly as possible. But let's try to define what fraud is. What does the Nigerian definition of fraud seem like?
All right, thank you, Peter. There are so many definitions you can give to fraud, but it suffices to say that in law, fraud is deliberate deception to secure unfair or unlawful gain, or to deprive a victim of a legal right. Fraudsters, fraud itself can be civil wrong or a criminal wrong. Where it is a civil wrong, it all depends. You can.
So what is the instance of a civil?
The civil aspect of it is if the person who commits such offense, you ask him to return back whatever he has taken. You can go through civil wrong to deal with that. Then there's criminal aspect of it, because that become something of the state. But the individual person can go through civil aspect. So in all of this, what are the main, what we get out from any definition of this what fraud is a person makes a material false statement is fraudulent. Again, the victim relies on that statement and acts accordingly, and again there's criminal benefit to the person who perpetrates such a act. So these are some of.
So all this is capture, even Yahoo.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. The one we call 419 and all of that. All of this are. That's why we have the advanced free fraud. There's an act which deals with all of that. So the issue of fraud is not something that should be taken with kid gloves. We need to fight it headlong. Like I said, majority of perpetrators of this, they usually will have that they just look at loopholes within an organization. Then they start. It has to do with greed first. Then they now say, okay, because have not been caught, then that becomes a part of what they want to be doing every now and then. Where the auditors have a role to play is because once it comes to auditing of any firm or government agency or parastatal, the auditors need to have an extra eye, and they are the key persons that can assist in nipping this fraud issue from the very onset. Management has a role, then the auditors have a greater role to play.
And we have a role to report such cases as well. Feel free to call us up on 081 89 99 1011. Shola?
It's a good thing that the media, I hope the media will just rise to their game and make sure that they give us regular updates of rules and regulation that will be able to fight against these crimes and reduce such act.
All right.
But I have another question.
Hello, good morning.
Before then, let's answer this call and go back to your question. Hello?
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Am I on to Human Rights Radio?
Yes, you are.
I want to commend the radio station for that wonderful topic today.
Okay.
I think what the guest just brought down is a very good way to fight corruption. Because if I would take a Senate president to the marketplace to sweep it for the next 1 year, I think everyone will be scared to pay the government money. So there is no need taking anyone to the prison, as he just said, and I want to really appreciate you again for bringing that topic down. It's wonderful.
Okay.
And I wish that Nigerians will always look onto people like that. And God bless the Human Rights Radio. God bless Netflix.
And God bless you too. Thank you so much for calling us on X-Ray.
Yeah, Peter, you see, one thing that we have not done in this country is to assess the what I'll call the impact of imprisonment on our economy. The number of persons awaiting trial. I'll give you some instances. In Rivers State, okay, let me say the whole Nigeria, 71 or 70% of inmates are awaiting trial. They've not been convicted. And these inmates, one, government feeds them. Secondly, government spend a lot of money maintaining some of this infrastructure. If we quantify the amount of money we use in taking care of this, you will see that the benefit of alternative to imprisonment is far more higher. On a very lighter note, majority of these inmates are male. And we are talking about ladies not having husbands or things like that. These are potential husbands, for God's sake.
Honestly speaking.
So we are not looking at the social impact of all of this.
Inshallah is looking for a husband.
No, it's not about looking for husband. I'm looking at it holistically. I went to Port Harcourt prison, and the number of young men that I saw there, it struck me that these are just being wasted.
And they are young youth.
They are young. Some of them less than 35. Majority of them, let me say, less than 35. So you can see we need to do a lot in the area of sensitization. If we sensitize ourselves very well on the need not to be involved in crime, it plays a lot.
Quite agree with you on that. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
This is Chubu coming from
Well, welcome to X-Ray on Human Rights Radio.
I want to congratulate you people for the good job you're doing.
Thank you.
And for the ordinary president, God will bless him.
Thank you very much.
But there's something that I want to say about this corruption of the thing. You know, most times, the people that is perpetrating everything are government workers. And those banks that used to pay them by hiding their accounts that will not let the public connect. They are not helping matters as well, because the government, the president himself is trying to see what he can do to eradicate the corruption of the thing. But it has taken deep into our system that even an ordinary man is discreet. Now, we want you to bribe him to do one or two things for you. So if you are going to fight it, let the court to make sure that the sentence most of what is written. So at least, even though it's 6 months today, let them go. So that the rest of the people can thank for me.
Okay.
So this is my contribution.
Thank you so much for contributing on the program.
Okay.
So there you have it. I'm thinking also that we have other means of managing our crisis in terms of fraudulent acts in the country. We've seen you walk into a hotel, you see a notice as of course being circulated by the EFCC showing allegiance to the Money Laundering Act. So it shows that, of course, that information is being passed from the EFCC to some of these organizations, and they try to warn you right in front of the reception about their allegiance to the EFCC Act, the Money Laundering Act, and all of that.
It's a very good thing
to be corrected.
You see, I feel sometimes I feel sad about all of this. We had a situation where somebody was arrested, tried, and convicted in this country. The person never spent one night in a prison. Rather, the person now said, "I'm sick," and all of that. The 6 months where the person was convicted, she spent that 6 months in a hotel, in a hospital. That is how bad it is. That even if when you have all the monies in this world, you are convicted, you can still get still get a leeway out of the punishment. The community service is one area that I really want the government to the alternative sentencing. One area I want our judges and the government to look into. Why am I saying this? It would, if you see, for instance, that lady that was convicted to come and that was convicted for 6 months, if she was made to use her bare hands to wash in the National Hospital, for instance, and people were coming to say this was a former bank manager washing clothes at the National Hospital, it will discourage like minds from committing such an act.
That's true.
It deters a lot of people from, So community service is one way to look at dealing with frauds. One, the person is arrested.
To decongesting our prisons.
I just made it. Go to Kano prisons, for instance. I just mentioned Port Harcourt. Go to Kano. Go to Agodi prison in Oyo State. Go to Lagos State, Kirikiri, either medium prison. The number of awaiting trial is, in fact, even the number of inmates is higher than the capacity of that prison. So we need to look for a way to decongest our prison. We need this law, this person in conflict with the law, to be meaningful to the society. Ask them to come and be washing cars in a particular place, and as they are washing cars, somebody is collecting maybe 300 naira. It earns government money. Even where you need to feed them at the cost of feeding them is even a burden on the government. Our prison farms, a lot of them are not even there to say you want to. For God's sake, we have so many things we can do in this country to make Nigeria really move forward. And it will deter a lot of persons from committing one crime or the other. Simple traffic offense, for instance, you don't need to send somebody to prison.
Or find the person.
To even find the person will just pay and he leaves. But if you ask the person to go and do community service, let his office know that he has committed a crime. This is a minor, offense, but he needs to pay for it. Even in his office, you ask that they monitor him to ensure that if he's a director, let him be sweeping and mopping office around, mopping the office within his
own office.
In his own
Although
office.
I suspect if that would be possible in Nigeria.
No, these are things that can be done.
Because for the fact that he's a director or he's a head of that place, he still have some power there.
He has some power.
Even if they take the power, there are some uncles and aunties that will collect the mop from him and help him clean it.
You need to sensitize that office that he has
the society in general.
He has committed a crime and he's paying for it. So nobody should assist him. That is his punishment for defaulting.
Well, I'll ask you one question. What about banks?
No, banks.
Bureau the change, all those microfinance.
All of this, if they are major offenses, send them to prison. If they are minor offenses.
But we don't get to know about it. CBN punished them, I hear, but I don't.
That is where the media. You spoke about the media.
Yes.
One challenge I will give our colleagues who are in the media is to be involved in investigative journalism. Not just report a case and you leave it there. Follow through to the end of that case, and each time report to the general public about the ongoing that.
This one you are mentioning case. Media, you are looking at me.
Yes, I'm looking at you because you are part of the media.
Anyway, final comments from you, Shola, and final comments from you, Barrister Idris.
Well, I beseech Nigerians, be informed. Strive to get information about Nigeria. Our bills, we have so many acts, we don't even know about them, and they are supposed to protect us. It's our responsibility, it's our duty. Know your right. Get informed.
All right, Peter, for me, I think we need to read. We need to read, and we need to read. These days and time, the technology is closer to us, but we use our phones to do chatting and WhatsApping and Facebooking and all of that. Let us use this medium to do exactly what it's meant for. Investigate, look for once a case is reported, follow through, and the journalist who report that case, if the journal has his or her email address, write to the person what is happening to this case. This will put the person in that person on his toes to give us the information we really need.
All right. And for me, I'd like to say, report cases of fraudulent acts to the necessary authorities. Don't be afraid and say, oh, they will not listen to me. It's not true. They listen these days because everybody is feeling the pain. Yeah. So you have to listen whether you like it or not. But do have a lovely time ahead. X-Ray returns tomorrow with the full house. Have a lovely time. My name is Peter Kundum.
For languages.